Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for being here. It's a great crowd. My name is Nidhi. I am the founder of Portcast. At Portcast, we help shippers manage the risk and the cost in their supply chain better through shipment visibility and also rates management, contract management. In supply chains, we've talked about visibility for many years now. More data, more dashboards, more reports, and yet we've seen that supply chain teams are still being reactive a lot of times. They know about disruptions too late, and they know about costs in their invoices a few weeks later that they did not imagine. We believe at Podcast that visibility is not just about more data. It's really about knowing where to act and when to act. And that's the thinking behind our technology and how we look at it in the form of command center, which tells any logistics person to start their day by knowing where they should act. Where are the delays? Where are the cost issues? Where are the contract efficiency areas? And joining me today is Nishant. Nishant has spent years in complex FMCG supply chains with PepsiCo, DHL, and now Mondelez. And we've been working together with Nishant and his team for over a year now. And in the next 20 minutes, I'd love to understand, we'll get to know Nishant a little bit better, hopefully, and I'd love to also have him talk about, the issues that they deal with at Mondelez and how visibility has been helping them. So Nishant, maybe if you can give a brief introduction about yourself. I'm sure everyone knows Mondelez, but just to...
Hi everyone, I'm Nishant. I am the region transportation lead for Mondelez AMEA, so Asia, Middle East and Africa is the region. I look after international freight and also domestic freight productivity, digitization, etc. And as Nidhi mentioned, I've had stints in PepsiCo where I've done transportation planning, and then in DHL where we were pretty much in the same team but not at the same time as part of the DHL consulting group.
Great. So Nishant, you manage thousands of shipments of Cadbury, Oreo, and Toblerone around the world every single day. In the last year, what's been one really chaotic supply chain moment that you remember? Maybe let's start with that.
Okay, I think it's not last year, right? It's just a couple of months back. We all are there. And that has been, has to be one of the most chaotic ones, right? I would even term it more chaotic than the Red Sea disruption because there was still a workaround through Africa. But here it has become even more complex, particularly from ocean shipping point of view, because the Persian Gulf is basically inaccessible. So that would be easily, that was a very easy question. So yes.
Yeah. And how many meals or vacations have been interrupted in your life because of containers being, not there at the right time?
You just need to be online on your phone. I think that works. So
24/7.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm used to it. Even in domestic logistics, it's the same. So yes.
Okay, so maybe let's start with trying to dig deeper into visibility. Why for a large-scale operations company like Mondelez, why is visibility so important? What are the big problems you're trying to solve with visibility?
So visibility. We move a lot of containers right across the globe, and it's important just for understanding when we would receive the containers, right? That's as simple as basic as that, but then also get into, okay, what are the issues that we may have to resolve more proactively, right? So there could be containers stuck in transshipment, containers stuck at the origin, and anything between that, right? In the entire chain, there are other unplanned transshipments which happen. We have also noticed, and I think most of us have, that there are transshipments where the next leg is simply not assigned. And you have to reach out to the carrier and say, okay, this does not have a vessel assigned. And guess what? If you had not reached out, it may have taken another couple of weeks for the container to be picked up. So anything of these kinds, right, which are more operational in nature and then require intervention. So it's more operational than just the KPIs itself.
But what would you say is the business impact if these situations happen? Like, what does it mean for Mondelez as a brand, as a company?
So it directly impacts customer service, right? Because if the products don't reach on time, then we miss our commitments with the customers. The stock is not there. Then it leads to extra costs, right? So you have to then take necessary actions, move it from a suboptimal location, at times even air freight, etc. Right? So all of that just adds to cost. So that that predictability is very important to take actions in time to avoid incremental additional costs.
Okay, so then as Mondelez, at Mondelez, you've looked at probably visibility for a few years, and you worked with maybe, a few more than one companies, more than working with us, for example. What has sort of been the challenge? Like why, previous solutions did not work, and what you're doing differently now versus earlier?
Yeah. So it's been a journey, right? So I think initially just getting the basic track and trace was something which was quite challenging, right? So that's what we focused on, right? To get the basic track and trace in place, at least with 95% accuracy, right? There will always be a few containers which will have issues because of carrier, etc., whatnot. So that was where we started, right? But then as the thing with technology is everything starts getting into the baseline very quickly, not in a matter of years, but in a matter of months. So the track and trace was there, but then it became, okay, so what? Okay, you can see what is happening, but then you're still seeing what's happening, right? So there was a need to then make it more proactive, right? So understand and detect problems before they happen, and then take necessary actions, right? So that's where it has evolved, and that's what our focus has been, right? To partner with like Portcast, to give us that incremental advantage, because track and trace is now, I mean, if I were to say, slightly commoditized, right? It's not, you can get it from everywhere, right? I mean, you can actually go on the carrier website and get it as well, right? So that's where we are evolving to, right? So it needs to be more proactive. It should eventually help plan the days of the day of the logistics person in a better way, right? To inform them of the necessary actions they need to take, and then go about their day-to-day tasks.
So how is, and one of the things that we work together on is, move away from that sort of looking at a dot on a map or every single shipment milestones towards that exception management, or like how can you make it actionable through a command center. But how do you think a command center is different from just another dashboard? Like what is different in the day of logistics person's life in your team because of that?
I think the important thing is not everyone's priority is the same, right? Also, it depends by geography. A very simple example would be if you're importing something from Europe, then the lead time or on a long haul, it's 50 days, right? Now, if there is a delay of 3-4 days, as much as we'd like to be on the 58th day, 3 to 4 days will not change a lot, right? So that variability is still within the acceptable terms, right, that we work with. But now translate that 3 to 4 days into an intra-Asia, Southeast Asia leg, where the transit time itself is like 3 to 4 days. That is basically doubling up the transit time, right? So different people in different markets have different priorities. And what Command Center does very well is it helps you create those necessary alerts in a more user-defined way, right? So for me, what matters more is just a 2-day delay, right? So I will set it up in that way. But then there are other markets where a 2 day is perfectly fine because of the nature of their sourcing, right? And their average lead times are in weeks. So they're looking more for the 5-day, etc. And the ability to then even gradient those risk levels, right, into high, medium, low, then also starts to help. So we're highly customizable, right? So that means it's not one size fits all. And then you're able to play around, right, and address the specific requirement of each user in different markets, right, and to what they would like to see and take action on.
So maybe if we can make it a little bit more tangible. So let's talk about specific issues that happen in the supply chain. So let's talk about, let's say, shipments being idle at transshipment. What sort of visibility or what sort of information do you need? And what actions can you actually take? And how can the data help you take those actions?
Yeah. So shipments idle at transshipment, right? So that's by design, right? So you'll always have a container idle, but what matters more is how much time, right? Would it, the container is in transshipment. So the way a lot of people are now using this is at Mondelez is looking at what is normal in terms of the transshipment time. So you're able to see, okay, is it in a bucket of 3 days, 3 to 7 days, and you know your lane, right? So you know that once it has gone into the next bucket, this is where the criticality is. Now people go in and check, okay, when is the vessel assignment, right? And if you don't see it, then you know that, okay, this will now be a problem. So that's where people use it, right? And then flag to the carriers. And guess what? A lot of times, actually, most of the times, actually, when we reach out to carriers, they are able to give us the necessary connections, right? So, because sometimes it's just like it's lost in translation, right? So it's just another container till the time somebody even on the carrier side say, okay, yeah, this needs to be prioritized, and then it gets back on schedule, right? So that's on transshipment, and the same thing goes for detention and demurrage, right? So again, being able to proactively detect before your free days expire. So then you are able to take actions, right? So either it could be something as vessel delays, right? So, and the thing is, a lot of times, and I'm sure a lot of us here would have seen this, is you will still get an invoice when there is a vessel delay, right? So, and it's not that, and to be fair, nobody's trying to make money off it, right? It's just conflicting interests, because as a shipper, it's more money to me, but as a carrier, that's an expense to them at the terminal. But for the terminal, it's an expense because the container was in the terminal, right? So it's basically multiple conflicting interests. But at the same time, the good thing is there is a recognition even on the carrier side to understand this and as much as possible reduce or waive off these things, right? So in case there was a delay which was not on account of us, right, as a shipper. So again, that's something that the control tower has been quite useful for. And that's what we are also using as one of the things that we're using it for.
So I do remember, there was one situation where you saw that the container was incurring demurrage, and that was not mandated by Mondelez, like it was by the carrier, and you were able to, ask the carrier to kind of pick it up and not send the invoice later for that.
Yeah. I mean, it has happened multiple times, right? So, I mean, there have also been cases where, I mean, thankfully not a lot in single digits, but where the clearing agent just missed clearing it. So, but it came up on the control tower, on the command center, and then we were able to say, hey, why is this incurring demurrage? And they said, oh, we've got it cleared today. So it was just about somehow falling through the cracks.
And then again, for shipments that are idle at transshipment, what we were talking about earlier, like for sort of perishable or high value goods like Mondelez, like if shipments are stuck at a transshipment for more than like 14 days, that's a big risk for you, I'm guessing.
Yeah, so that's why we have, I mean, the command center bucketizes it, right? So we are able to monitor the risk in that way. And then we have, I mean, again, back to the current crisis, right?
Yeah.
Because of that, changing schedules, we've gone on calls with carriers to tell them, okay, here are the number of containers which are stuck, here's more which are coming in, right? And give them the aging of the containers, and we have been able to successfully get our containers picked up, at least what we like to think is on priority, because all of them coincidentally went on the same vessel, which was not the plan earlier, right? So it helps us take those decisions.
So that's interesting, because a lot of customers, when we talk to them and we say, okay, for the Iran crisis, for example, visibility can help know which shipments are sort of going to be impacted. But what are the actions that you as a shipper can actually take? Like if you can dig a little bit more into that, like what were you actually able to do in that crisis situation?
So what the command center helps also is, one is, I think there are others who can do this as well, right? So you put containers on a vessel, right? So which show up. But then the other thing is, even at the ports, you have the number of containers which will transship or would arrive or are at risk, right? What this has helped us is, because of all the diversions that happen, we were able to go port by port to understand what were the containers which are currently in transshipment. And a lot of them did not have the next connection assigned, right? Because carriers were also trying to understand what's the best way to move it around. what it helped us with was pick it up with in conversations with carriers, right? And also tell them the urgency of the matter. I'm sure, again, a lot of us would have heard this, right? So can you take delivery of this cargo in another country, right? But for food product, there are packaging regulations, right? A product which is meant for, let's say, India or the UAE, don't have the same packaging, right? It's not like iron and steel.
Yeah.
I actually said that in one of the calls with a carrier. It cannot be taken in another country, right? So, but a lot of times people who are handling it at a operational level in the carrier or the forwarder teams would not necessarily know it, right? So it was imperative to tell them that, look, it has to go to the destination, and here's the time we have left, right? Before this product will not be in a sellable condition, right? Because they have shelf lives, and forget customer requirements. The customs in most countries do not allow imports below a certain shelf life for food products, right? So thankfully, I mean, that helped perhaps or give a better push, and finally everything got collected. But that's where we were able to tell them precisely what is stuck where, because sometimes even they were trying to understand, okay, here's the information we have. But that's where the command center was useful to give that single point of view.
That's very interesting. Then there's also this element about, you have signed all the contracts with the carriers and maybe freight forwarders as well. And, while leading the logistics spend, you want to also ensure that the commitment of contract allocation, etc., that you have with each carrier or forwarder, that's managed, so that in the next sort of procurement cycle, you can have, the conversation as well in terms of how you've kept up to your word. So how do you kind of use the visibility data to make sure that you can manage your contract allocation and efficiency best?
So it's more about understanding where the gaps are, right? And sometimes there's a conflict, right? Because when we talk to carriers, we talk to mostly our account managers, right? So they have the same data, right? So they flag that, hey, we are not getting this fulfillment, right, which was awarded to us. But a lot of times there are operational reasons why it's not happening. But what the contract allocation helps us do is it does not become a carrier asking questions and then we go chase the answer, right? So it starts to give a view on, okay, where are we off by a significant number, right? So, and then understand why is that happening from the respective teams, right? And from the booking team, and then take it up, right? And it could be actually a combination of not getting the bookings from the carrier. It could also be not having the right schedule, and hence the origin or the destination market doesn't want to use it. But then it helps us to understand all of that and then take necessary actions.
And it could also uncover savings opportunity, right? Maybe there are sort of, more efficient, cost-effective contract allocation that is not being used, and others that are being used by the team, but, they just did not have the information at hand.
Yes, I mean, of course, that goes without saying, right? So I would say the primary motivation to monitor it is to ensure that whatever was the plan in terms of the cost is adhered to, right? And wherever there are multiple carriers, that becomes important to make sure that it's in the right allocation. And hence, because it goes both ways, right? It's not to be opportunistic and use the lower cost carrier always, right? Because then in the next contracting cycle, you will have difficulty securing capacity itself or de-risking lanes where you would want multiple carriers. So it's more about just making sure that you adhere to it. And of course, then it also leads to some prevention of leakages in the plant cost.
And then after the journey of the shipments arrive, we've talked about dashboards so many times, about transit time, performance management, measurement, carrier scorecards, dwell time measurement. But how do you look at it? Like, what is important for you to get that information right?
So it's important because right now, how do I put it? It's more like we don't have everything at one place, right? So there's information, but it may not be together. Not everybody may have it, right? So what it does is we get it in one place, right? So it helps have those conversations, right? Because Also, I think in the previous panel, we were talking about costs and benchmarks, right? There's always a back and forth in terms of getting the lowest cost versus higher reliability versus the fastest transit time, etc., right? So the idea is get everything at one place and then also see what really is the fastest, right? Because you might get offered a 25-day transit, but in reality, it's always 35, right? So measuring it against the contract is important, but then at the same time, understanding which carriers are able to give you what transit time, and then what is the typical dwell time at the origin, what is the typical dwell time at the transshipment ports, etc., in case it's not a direct route. All of that then helps and is helping to feed into the next contracting cycle, right? So that you can take the right decisions as well, and then talk to carriers, because sometimes, as I said, right, so putting the full picture is also very important, because when you talk to the account managers, and more often than not, they're like, can you give us the data so that we can go back and challenge internally on why this is not working out for you, right? So it's helping actually both of us, right? So it's more a win-win just from a shipper point of view and also from a carrier point of view.
Yeah, I also feel that, technology is one thing, but then sort of knowing how you can leverage it best, like, it's also a lot about education and change management. Like, have you had to do that in your team, like help them understand how they can use the technology in the best way and get the most value from it?
Yes, of course, right? So because the inherent tendency is to be reactive, right?
Yeah.
So it's not that before we had any track and trace, right? Not just Portcast, right? Even whatever we had earlier, it was not that none of us could track it, right? I could simply go on a carrier website and see where my container is, right? But that was reactive, right? When I knew there was a problem, right? I wouldn't, let's say, if I'm handling the imports for a particular market, I wouldn't go and check it every day for everything. So that's change management, right? Initially, you have to get used to the interface, understand how to set up the right cards in the command center, etc., right? And once you do that, you are then able to get the right information, right? Without having to individually search for each one of them. Or actually, the other one is look through and comb through an Excel file, because sometimes a lot of us get an Excel file, right? But guess what? Some things get missed. But at least with this, because the exceptions get flagged out, you're able to do it. But just getting used to that takes time, right? And hence one of the things, right? I mean, I've asked your team is share with me the usage statistics, right? Because that goes a long way in understanding, are people using it? And that's more to then connect with people who are not using it enough to understand why are they not using it, right? And then that's where then you have connects and understand, okay, what is it that they want to be solved for, and then give them the right tools, right, or the configurations so that they are able to use it more often.
Yeah. That's really interesting. And, so now that you feel that you have more control about trying to be more proactively, what are the next big things that you want to do to help improve the risk or the cost in the supply chain for Mondelez?
Yeah, I think where I'm trying to remember. I think maybe it was this Monday actually, right? I was talking to your team. So the idea is, why don't we make it more like what I said earlier, right? Is into something that you can plan your day by, right? So you know what you have to take action on, and you also get a sense of what things are on track, right? So basically get a simple scorecard or an action report actually, right? Which tells you in one side that, okay, here is what is in transit, here's everything which is on time. And then it tells you, okay, here are the ones where you need to take action. And by the way, why do you need to take action, right? So it could be a demurrage, it could be a transshipment, it could be as simple as a sailing delay. So then you're able to just look at that in the morning and then take the necessary actions, right? So technology helping us be more organized, right? And then planning our day better. And then at the same time, preventing the costs, right, which shouldn't come up in the first place.
Yeah, so that kind of leads me to think about AI, because our team kind of heavily thinks about how AI can enable those actions for customers as well. What's your view? I mean, of course, like large companies like Mondelez also have a lot of security and privacy guidelines. How do you see AI helping supply chains? What are the areas where you can see it completely being used and automating process, and where will it still miss what a supply chain expert knows?
So it's still in evolution, right? So we are still trying to understand what would be the best cases, right? Particularly in supply chain. And from a day-to-day operations point of view, right? So there are a lot of correlations that we still are not able to make, or we can make it, right? But it again goes back to the exception that I told you, right? So when I know that these site shipments had a problem, I can go look at the individual, let's say from the booking PDF, what was the initial vessel, right? What was the initial plan, which vessel did it get loaded on, etc., right? Now there's a lot of data and there's a lot of correlations you can start to draw, right? But then I can do it on somewhere I can see there's a higher cost. But then what AI can help is just build those for pretty much everything, right? And start to flag what are the things which were not normal, right? So where, let's say, there shouldn't have been an extra charge, a D&D, etc., right? So I see a lot of things where just handling the data sets, so even from, let's say, total end-to-end rate point of view, right? So we know that, okay, we pay, let's say, $1,000 on a particular lane. That's the contracted thing, right? But do you really know for exactly every shipment what were the incidentals that you paid, right? So that you can build that end-to-end cost view for every carrier on a lane, to then in your next contracting cycle go in and say, okay, you know what? I see 1,000 from you and I see 1,100 from the other. But in reality, I pay 1,500 with you, but I pay only 1,200 with the other, right? And then, so bringing that information together, right, or for a contracting perspective or an operational perspective, I think there's a lot that we can do with the help of AI, because there's a lot of data and we usually focus more on exceptions. But not on the full data set, right? So there's a lot of insights to be drawn from there.
And a lot of this data is sitting in documents, it's unstructured as well. So the contracts, the rate cards,
the booking PDF.
Invoices, So that's where AI could kind of help structure the data and then kind of make sense from it.
Right, because I can't write a code to read a booking PDF, right? So that AI can do that very well. So that's my initial information, and then I can start marrying it with what actually happened operationally.
But at the same time, do you think there's something that AI will never understand about supply chain?
I think what I said, right? So there are conflicting priorities just by the nature of the stakeholders involved, right? As the shipper, I want the lowest cost. As a carrier, the carrier wants the lowest cost, hence better margins. The terminal wants the lowest cost, hence better margins, right? So now, if everything was so logical in the world, I wouldn't have gotten an invoice for a demurrage which was caused by a vessel delay. Back to the same thing. Now, if a AI bot can go and ask the AI bot of the carrier the same thing, I'd be very surprised that the carrier will tune it to say, okay, it is waived off. Like you call for your credit card annual waiver and you just press a button in Singapore and usually you get a waiver, right? So that's where I think that subjectivity element, right, and the relationship will matter. So the rest can be automated, but then you will still need those where it will be human touch and not an automated thing. At least that's what I hope for.
And I also want to ask, what do you think, like based on, your family or your friends that you discuss with, like what is one thing about supply chain that people outside of supply chain don't understand about the job?
I think it's the day-to-day haggles you get into, right? So it feels, okay, I mean, a truck is moving, it went from A to B, or container went from A to B. But the amount of coordination you have to do on exceptions. And what I like to say, and I'm sure everyone will agree, is in logistics, there'll always be exception, right? What matters is how quickly are your 3PLs able to solve it, right? And address it, and how quickly are you able to pick it up and also address it, right? So there's a lot of exception management which happens. It'll never be 100% flawless. But the problem is even that 10, 20 or whatever percentage it is for all of us, that is something which takes up a lot of time, right? And is something that is, unless somebody is into supply chain, will become very difficult to appreciate, right? Like, why are you so busy, right? I mean, it was just these many trips, monitoring it, right? And you just tell the vendor, right? They'll solve it. But yeah, guess what? The vendor did not want to be in this situation to begin with, right? So there are constraints there as well. So I think, yeah, that will always be something that, and each function has it, right? I'm sure we'll think the same about other functions. So
yeah. And lastly, I did not tell you about this, but I have a rapid fire list of questions for you.
Okay.
So please don't think and just say the first thing that comes to your mind. And then we'll open up to the audience for questions. So here it goes. Cadbury or Toblerone?
Toblerone.
Ocean freight or air freight?
Ocean freight.
A KPI that you secretly dislike?
Dislike. Oh. I think, transit time reliability, because the schedule reliability is so bad for ocean freight.
AI or Excel?
AI.
One thing sales teams will never understand.
The day-to-day that goes in rescuing shipments which were not on track and ensuring customer service.
Window seat or aisle seat?
Aisle.
All right. Thank you, Nishant. Thank you for a fun conversation.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
I think, I just want to say that this was very insightful. I hope we talked about some specific things where technology, data can help. So thank you, Nishant, for sharing those examples. For also sharing, how supply chain is so chaotic, but also fun at the same time. I'd love to open up to the audience and see if you have any questions for Nishant or me.
Hi, thanks for sharing about the command center. And I wonder how much you rely on the data from the provider carriers, and how do you manage the quality of those?
So I think Nidhi will add more to it, right? But as I said, right, so it's not 100%, right? So there are still shipments which do not have the full data that you would like, right? But, I get curious, I go back to the shipping lines website, and guess what? It's pretty much the same, right? At least what helps in Portcast is you are still able to see that, hey, the vessel did depart. Now, if the shipping line did not tell you that the container was loaded on that vessel, then it's a problem, right? You've got to ask. But thankfully, for most of them, they do tell you that, okay, it was loaded, right? So you have to then look at it and then assume that it's already in waters, right? So, and it's getting, it's moving. But there are gaps, right? But thankfully not with the major providers. So you will still get this off and on. And the way I look at it is I'm trying to solve the 95% of it, right? So the final 5% would be a more effort in general, right? But doesn't mean I go soft on Portcast side. So they have to fix that 5% as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.